The sun was just beginning to rise over the African savanna. A pale orange light painted the horizon, spreading across the tall golden grass. Dew still clung to the tips of the blades, and the cool breeze of dawn carried the faint smell of dust, life, and wilderness. The land was waking up, slowly, peacefully, as if the entire world took a deep breath before another day of survival began. Far in the distance, a lone lion walked with a sluggish, almost uncertain gait. His mane shimmered faintly in the new sunlight, though patches of it were matted and dusty. He wasn't young anymore, yet not old enough to surrender. His body bore scars of many fights, reminders of his past, glory and the countless battles that shaped his reign. He was known to the local guides as Kovu, proud lion who had once ruled a small territory near the river bend. But lately his strength had waned. Another younger male had challenged him weeks ago. The battle was fierce, echoing through the plains for miles. Kovu lost. He was driven out, forced to wander aimlessly, looking for food and safety, two things that rarely come easy for an exiled king. This morning hunger was gnawing at his belly. It had been 3 days since his last meal. The sun was climbing higher, and the insects began their symphony, buzzing, chirping, and whispering the rhythm of the wild. Kovu's golden eyes scanned the tall grass, alert for movement. His instincts were still sharp. Suddenly something rustled nearby, faint but close. His ears twitched, his tail stiffened. He crouched low, muscles tightening as his gaze fixed on a small shape moving through the grass. It was round, dark, and covered in something strange. A porcupine. Kovu's heart beat faster. Her meal. Not much, but better than nothing. He lowered himself further, each step calculated and silent. The porcupine waddled slowly, sniffing the ground, unaware of the predator watching from only a few meters away. Kovu's breathing slowed. His eyes narrowed. Then he pounced. A sudden explosion of sound and movement shattered the stillness. The porcupine shrieked and spun around, its quills flaring like a living shield of needles. But it was too late. Kovu's paw came down hard. His claws slashed the earth, and pain ripped through his leg. The lion roared in agony. Quills had buried deep into his paw and chest. He stumbled back, confused and furious. The porcupine rolled away, disappearing into the grass with surprising speed. Kovu tried to shake off the quills, pawing desperately at his own body. Some quills broke off, others sank deeper. Each movement made it worse. He limped, roaring again, louder this time, the kind of roar filled with pain, not power. The savanna fell silent for a moment. Even the birds went quiet. Kovu tried to move forward, but his leg gave out. He collapsed under the shade of a thorn tree, panting heavily. His body trembled with every breath. Time passed, minutes, then hours. The sun climbed higher, merciless and hot. Kovu's wounds began to swell. A few quills had pierced dangerously close to his chest muscles, and each heartbeat sent waves of pain through him. He licked his wounds, but some quills were beyond reach. His tongue caught the sharp ends, drawing blood. He stopped, exhausted. His golden eyes dimmed with fatigue. In the distance, the sound of an engine broke the stillness, a faint rumble that grew louder. A jeep slowly approached the area. Inside it was Ethan, a wildlife photographer and conservation volunteer, who often roamed these plains to monitor animal movement. Ethan was used to seeing animals injured. It's part of life out here. But what he was about to find would stay with him forever. He stopped his jeep when he saw the shape under the tree. The lion was still, except for a faint movement of his chest. Ethan raised his binoculars. His heart skipped. A lion alone, injured up, that was dangerous. Very dangerous. But something about the scene drew him closer. He could see the quills glinting in the sunlight. Dozens of them, he whispered under his breath. Oh, buddy, what happened to you? Ethan grabbed his camera, taking a few photos for documentation. Then he radioed the nearby wildlife rescue team. But there was a problem. The signal was weak in this area. His voice cracked through static, and he wasn't sure if the message got through. He waited. No response. He looked at the lion again. Kovu tried to lift his head weakly. Their eyes met, predator and human, both exhausted by the harshness of life. Ethan felt something stir inside him. He couldn't just sit there and watch. Very slowly he stepped out of the jeep, keeping his distance. He moved carefully, one step at a time, making sure not to startle the lion. Kovu's gaze followed him, but he didn't move. The lion's breathing was heavy, shallow, and pained. Ethan could see the quills, some lodged deep in the shoulder, a few around the mouth. Easy. Easy, big guy, Ethan whispered. His voice trembled slightly. He had no weapon, no tranquilizer, just his first aid kit and a heart that refused to leave a suffering creature alone. He crouched about 20 feet away, observing. The quills had been there for hours. Infection would start soon. The lion wouldn't last long. Ethan knew he had to act, but how? He moved back to his jeep, took a blanket, a long stick, and a small bottle of antiseptic. It wasn't much. He approached again, keeping his body low. Kovu growled softly, a warning. But it wasn't the deep, threatening growl of a healthy lion. It was weak, tired, almost pleading. Ethan paused. "I'm not going to hurt you. I promise," he whispered again. The sound of his own voice felt strange, as if he was talking to an old friend. He moved a little closer. The lion's eyes flickered. Ethan reached out with the stick, trying to gently lift one of the quills. It came loose, not fully, but enough to make the lion flinch. Ethan froze. He waited. Kovu didn't attack. He just stared, breathing heavily, eyes half closed from exhaustion. Minutes passed like hours. Ethan worked slowly, sweat pouring down his face. One quill came out, then another. Each time he moved, the lion twitched but didn't strike. A strange trust was forming, fragile yet real. Finally, Ethan managed to remove several of the longest quills. He couldn't reach them all, but he had eased some of the pain. He poured a bit of antiseptic water near the wounds, then stepped back. The lion blinked, lifted his head weakly, and gave a low, rumbling sigh. Not a growl, not a roar, almost gratitude. Ethan sat on the ground a few meters away, breathing hard. His hands trembled. He had just done something incredibly dangerous and incredibly human. The sun was beginning to sink now, casting long shadows across the land. The air grew cooler, and distant sounds of hyenas echoed faintly. Ethan looked at the lion, still lying under the tree, and spoke softly. "You'll be okay, buddy. Help's coming soon." He stood up, heading back to his jeep to try the radio again. Behind him, Kovu slowly shifted, testing his leg. It still hurt, but he could move it slightly better. He lifted his head, watching the man walk away. The air between them was calm, a silent agreement between two beings from different worlds. As Ethan adjusted the radio antenna, static filled the air again. Still no clear signal. He climbed on top of the jeep, trying to get better range. The horizon was painted in hues of orange and pink, but in the quiet of the savannah, something else was stirring, something neither of them noticed yet. From behind the distant rocks, a faint movement caught the last light of the day. Eyes, glowing, hungry, watching. Hyenas. A small pack had been tracking the scent of blood. They moved silently, keeping low, their laughter suppressed into whispers of anticipation. The smell of the wounded lion was irresistible. And now the man's presence had only made things more interesting. Ethan looked toward the horizon, unaware. Kovu shifted again, uneasy. His instincts picked up the danger before his eyes did. He growled faintly, scanning the grass around him. The first shadow appeared, low to the ground, creeping closer. Then another. Then two more. The night was falling fast, and as darkness claimed the land, the line between rescuer and prey was about to blur in ways neither could imagine. The sky was slowly darkening over the savannah. The warm colors of sunset were fading into the deep blues of night. Crickets began their nightly chorus, and the air turned cooler, carrying the dry scent of dust and distant rain. The golden plains that once glowed under the sun now looked endless and mysterious, a world where danger and beauty moved together in silence. Ethan was still trying to get a signal on his radio. He climbed onto the roof of his jeep, lifting the antenna high, tapping the receiver again and again. Static crackled. His voice echoed softly through the device. "Base, this is Ethan, come in. Injured lion, possible porcupine quill infection, location." Then the sound faded again. Only static. He exhaled sharply. He looked toward the lion, still lying beneath the tree. Kovu was breathing heavily, but his eyes were more alert now. The pain was still there, but the lion's instincts were waking up again. That inner fire that makes a king even when his crown is slipping. Ethan smiled faintly. He felt proud, as if he had just shared a moment of life with a creature most would fear. He decided to stay nearby until morning. It wasn't safe to drive in the dark, and he couldn't leave the lion alone in this condition. So he gathered some dry wood from the area, struck a match and built a small fire beside his jeep. The orange glow lit the nearby grass and flickered gently against Kovu's fur. The lion raised his head slightly, his golden eyes reflecting the firelight. Ethan sat by the flame, watching him in silence. There was no need for words, just two beings sharing the same fragile peace, surrounded by the vast wild, but peace in the wild never lasts long. Somewhere beyond the tall grass, faint laughter echoed, that chilling, broken laughter that only one kind of creature makes: hyenas. At first, it was distant and just a sound carried by the wind, but then it came again, closer this time. Ethan froze. He turned slowly, scanning the darkness beyond the reach of the firelight. His heart began to beat faster. Kovu heard it too. His ears perked up. His tail twitched. The deep rumble of a growl built in his throat. His instincts screamed danger. He struggled to rise, one paw pressing hard into the ground, trying to support his weight. The first hyena emerged from the shadows, a silhouette with gleaming eyes and a crooked grin. Then another followed, and another. Soon 4 shapes were circling the outer ring of the firelight, their movements low and deliberate. Ethan grabbed his flashlight and shone it toward them. The beam of light cut through the darkness, revealing their faces, wild, hungry, eager. He counted 5 of them now, maybe 6. They were drawn by the scent of blood. The smell of the injured lion was too tempting to resist. Ethan's heart pounded. He picked up a burning stick from the fire and waved it, shouting, "Hey! Go, get out of here!" His voice cracked with both courage and fear. The hyenas backed off slightly but didn't retreat. They knew the lion was weak. They could sense it. Kovu managed to stand halfway, his muscles trembling. The quills still embedded in his body tore at his flesh with every movement, but he didn't care. His eyes burned with fury. The low growl turned into a snarl, then a deep roar that shook the night. For a moment everything froze. The sound rolled across the plains like thunder. Even the hyenas paused. Their laughter stopped, but hunger can make even fear fade. 2 of them darted forward, snapping at the air near Kovu's legs. The lion lunged forward with a burst of strength, swiping his paw. The air cracked with power. 1 hyena yelped and fell back, limping. The others scattered briefly. Regrouping a few meters away, Ethan's mind raced. He knew he couldn't just sit there. If they attacked again, both he and the lion could be in serious danger. He waved the torch again, shouting louder, throwing a burning branch toward the nearest hyena. Sparks flew into the night. The creature hissed and backed away, but they didn't leave. Instead, they began to circle wider, a hunting tactic. They knew how to wait. They knew exhaustion would soon claim both man and beast. The wind shifted, and the firelight flickered. For a second, darkness swallowed the ground beyond the flames. Ethan's eyes darted around. He couldn't see all of them anymore. His pulse quickened. He moved to the jeep, turning on the headlights. The beams illuminated the grassland like twin suns, revealing shadows moving just beyond their reach. Kovu growled again, his mane glowing faintly in the artificial light. He was standing now, shaky but proud. The king was not done yet. 1 hyena made a reckless move, charging forward. Kovu reacted instantly, roaring so loud that Ethan felt the vibration through his chest. The lion pounced, swiping with his injured paw. Pain shot through his body, but he didn't stop. His claws found flesh. The hyena cried out, tumbling into the grass. The others scattered again. Ethan stood frozen for a moment, watching in awe. Even wounded, the lion's strength was incredible. But he also knew this couldn't last forever. Kovu was bleeding again. Each movement tore open wounds that had barely begun to close. The fire began to die down. The flames shrank into embers. The night grew darker. Ethan hurried to throw more wood into the pit, his hands shaking. The hyenas were watching again, patient, clever. He could see their glowing eyes reflected in the dark, like tiny lanterns of menace. Minutes passed. Then one sound cut through everything, a soft whimper. Ethan turned. The lion was down again. Kovu's front legs gave out, and he collapsed beside the tree, breathing heavily. His body trembled with exhaustion. The fight had drained the last of his strength. Ethan's chest tightened. "No, no, no. Stay with me, buddy," he whispered, running closer. He crouched a few feet away, his heart aching at the sight. The lion's head rested on the dry earth, eyes half closed but still watching the darkness. The hyenas sensed the weakness instantly. Slowly, they crept closer again. Their laughter began, low, echoing, eerie. Ethan looked around desperately. He spotted his flare gun in the jeep, his last line of defense. He sprinted for it, stumbling on the rough ground. The laughter grew louder behind him. He grabbed the gun, loaded a single flare, and turned. He fired. A burst of red light shot into the sky, trailing sparks and smoke. The flare exploded overhead, bathing the savanna in crimson light. The hyenas froze, startled. The red glow flickered across their faces, their shadows stretching long and thin across the grass. The flare hissed and burned, falling slowly. The hyenas backed away, disappearing into the tall grass once again. Their laughter faded into the distance. Silence returned, except for the crackle of the dying fire and the heavy breathing of the wounded lion. Ethan dropped to his knees, panting. His body trembled from adrenaline. He looked at the lion again, tears welling in his eyes. "You made it. You scared them off," he said softly. Kovu blinked slowly, his massive chest rising and falling. He seemed calm now, as if he knew the danger had passed, and for now. The faint red glow of the flare reflected in his eyes, giving him an almost mythical look. Ethan sat beside him again, whispering softly, "You're gonna be all right. I promise." The lion's eyes met his for a long, quiet moment. Then Kovu let out a slow, deep sigh, laying his head back on the ground. Ethan could hear the wind moving gently through the grass again. The savanna was at peace once more, a fragile, temporary peace, but peace nonetheless. Hours passed. Ethan didn't sleep. He kept the fire alive, listening to the rhythm of the wild, the distant calls of jackals, the soft rustling of night creatures, the occasional roar of another lion somewhere far away. Every so often, Kovu would stir, lift his head weakly, then rest again. Ethan whispered each time, "Easy, you're safe now." But deep inside, both knew the story wasn't over. The wild doesn't forgive easily, and the night can hide many unseen dangers. As the first light of dawn began to touch the sky, the world seemed calmer. The horizon glowed with soft pink and gold. Ethan finally felt a moment of relief. He stood, stretching his tired body, and smiled faintly at the lion who had fought for his life through the long night. "I'll get you help today." "I promise," he said quietly. He turned back toward his jeep, picking up his radio once more. The signal crackled, faint but clearer now. He tried again. "Base, come in." "Injured lion, coordinates—" A voice responded this time, broken but audible. "We read you, Ethan. Repeat, we read you." His eyes widened. Finally, help was coming. He felt a wave of relief wash over him. He looked back at Kovu lying under the tree, his chest rising slowly, his mane gently moving with the morning breeze. The lion blinked at him, calm, almost peaceful. Ethan smiled. But just as hope filled the air, the wind shifted again. Air scent carried with it, not of rain or grass, but something metallic. Blood. Ethan turned quickly. His heart froze. There was movement again in the grass farther away, not hyenas this time. Larger shapes, silent, powerful. A small herd of buffalo had wandered into the area, restless, defensive, sensing predators nearby. And the sight of a lion, even a wounded one, could trigger their aggression. Ethan's pulse quickened. He whispered urgently, "No, not now." Kovu lifted his head weakly, his body still too frail to move fast. The buffalo snorted, stamping the ground. One of them lowered its head, horns gleaming in the morning light. The savanna fell silent again. Ethan's voice trembled as he whispered to himself, "Oh no. Please don't." The leader buffalo took a step forward. Then another. The terrible thing that was about to happen had already begun. The morning sun was just beginning to rise, but the peace of dawn shattered as the ground beneath Ethan's feet began to vibrate. The deep rumbling thunder of hooves rolled across the plains. Dust lifted into the air, curling in golden spirals as the first rays of sunlight hit it. The herd of buffalo, large, black and heavy-shouldered, had noticed the lion beneath the acacia tree. Ethan froze beside his jeep. His throat went dry. He counted at least 20, maybe more. They moved together, protective, restless. Somewhere in the middle, calves stuck close to their mothers. The older bulls formed a wide semicircle in front, stamping and snorting, eyes fixed on the injured predator. Kovu tried to stand. His muscles trembled. He managed to rise halfway before his hind leg gave out. The porcupine quills still embedded in his flesh pulsed with every heartbeat. He let out a low rumbling growl, not of dominance this time, but of warning. His mane rippled in the morning breeze. Ethan whispered, "Stay down. Please just stay down." But instinct ruled the lion's soul. Even weak, even wounded, he could not show fear. He stood again, staggering, his golden eyes locked on the advancing herd. The leader, a massive bull with scars across his muzzle, pawed at the ground, tossing dust into the air. Ethan felt his pulse hammering. He knew buffaloes could be unpredictable. They were fearless when protecting their own, and nothing enraged them more than the presence of a lion. He needed to draw their attention away before they reached Kovu. He jumped into the jeep and started the engine. The roar of the vehicle startled the herd. A few turned their heads toward the sound, uncertain. Ethan revved the engine louder, honking repeatedly, waving his arms out of the window, shouting, "Hey, go get out of here." For a brief second it worked. The herd hesitated, shifting their focus. But the leader bull wasn't convinced. His nostrils flared. He caught the scent of lion again. He lowered his head, snorted, and began to charge, straight toward Kovu. Ethan slammed the door and shouted, "No!" His heart raced as the bull's massive frame thundered forward. Kovu braced himself, pushing up with his forelegs, roaring in defiance. The sound tore through the air, powerful but desperate. The bull hit. Dust exploded. The impact sent shockwaves through the earth. Kovu stumbled sideways, rolling in the dirt. He roared in pain, scrambling to get back on his feet. The bull turned for another charge. Ethan couldn't think, and he just reacted. He grabbed a metal rod from the jeep and ran toward the chaos, waving and yelling. "Hey, over here!" His voice cracked in fear. The bull turned slightly, distracted for a split second, long enough for Kovu to lunge aside, avoiding a direct hit. But the move cost him. His paw slipped on the dusty ground, reopening the wounds in his shoulder. He fell again, gasping. Ethan ran closer, still shouting, trying to look big, making noise, hoping to scatter the herd. Some of the buffalo backed off. Others began circling, uneasy with the sudden commotion. The leader bull snorted again, uncertain now, torn between his instincts to protect and his confusion about this human who refused to retreat. Kovu forced himself upright, trembling. His chest heaved. Blood trickled down his flank. He looked at the man standing just a few meters away, facing a beast twice his size. For a heartbeat, the lion and the man locked eyes, a moment of shared understanding. Ethan whispered, "Come on, we can do this. Just hold on." The bull charged again. Ethan dived aside. The bull missed by inches, grazing his arm. Pain shot through him, but he scrambled up, throwing a handful of sand toward the animal's eyes. The bull shook its head furiously, blinded for a second. That second was enough. Kovu lunged with the last of his strength, roaring with every ounce of power left in his body. His claws struck the bull's shoulder. It wasn't a killing blow, but enough to make the massive creature stumble. The bull bellowed in shock and pain, turned sharply and retreated a few steps. Then the rest of the herd began to move, following the leader's retreating form. They didn't flee entirely. They simply backed off, satisfied that the threat had been dealt with. Dust filled the air. The thunder of their hooves faded into the distance. Ethan fell to his knees, gasping. His ears rang with the echo of roars and snorts. The smell of dust and blood mixed into the heavy air. Slowly the sound of the herd faded away, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than noise. He looked up. Kovu was still standing, barely. His mane was matted with dust, his breathing ragged. The great lion's eyes found Ethan again. He took one slow step forward, then another. Then he stopped. For a moment the two simply stared at each other. The world around them seemed to hold its breath. Ethan whispered, "You did it, my friend. You did it." The lion blinked slowly as if acknowledging those words. Then his legs gave way. He collapsed onto the earth, his body trembling. Ethan rushed forward, kneeling beside him. "No, no, no. Stay with me. You're safe now." His voice shook. He placed his hand near the lion's mane, not touching but close enough to feel the heat of life still inside. Kovu's chest rose and fell slower each time. His golden eyes, once fierce and full of fire, softened. His gaze drifted to the sky, where clouds glowed pink and gold with the morning light. The sound of distant birds filled the silence. Ethan's throat tightened. "You're okay. Help is coming." But deep down he knew. He could see the faint shiver that ran through the lion's body one last time, and then stopped. The king of this small corner of the savannah was gone. Ethan sat there for a long time, unable to move. The world felt still. Even the wind seemed to pause. The fire of life that had burned so fiercely through the night had finally gone out. A few minutes later, the sound of engines approached. 2 jeeps appeared on the horizon, the rescue team at last. They stopped nearby and the team hurried toward Ethan. One of them, a veterinarian named Dr. Leah, crouched beside the lion, checking for a pulse. She looked up and shook her head slowly. Ethan turned away, his eyes wet. Leah placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did what you could. He probably wouldn't have survived the infection anyway. But at least he didn't die alone." Ethan nodded silently. He looked at Kovu's still body, lying peacefully beneath the same tree that had sheltered him through the night. The sun rose higher, lighting the lion's mane with gold, as if nature itself gave him one final crown. The team began preparing to take samples and move the body for examination, but Ethan stopped them for a moment. He whispered, "Give me a minute." They nodded and stepped back. He sat beside the lion again, resting the metal rod beside him, staring at the endless savannah stretching out beyond the horizon. "You know," he murmured softly, "people think lions are just killers, but I saw something else last night. You fought, you trusted me, and you protected both of us. Maybe the wild isn't just about survival. Maybe it's about connection, even if it only lasts a moment." A gentle wind stirred the grass, rustling softly around them. A single feather drifted down from the acacia branches, landing near the lion's paw. Ethan watched it, his eyes glistening. Hours later, the team loaded their equipment back into the jeeps. They covered Kovu's body carefully and began the slow drive back to the reserve. Ethan followed in silence, the rhythmic hum of the engine blending with the sounds of the awakening day. As they drove, he kept replaying the night in his mind, the firelight dancing on the lion's mane, the echo of roars, the fragile trust in those golden eyes. Every detail felt etched into his heart. When they reached the conservation outpost, Ethan stood by quietly as the team examined the quills that had caused so much pain. "Dozens of them, long and sharp, still buried deep," Leah sighed. "Porcupine injuries are deadly. Infection spreads fast." Ethan nodded again, his gaze distant. He fought until the end. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low again, he returned alone to the spot where it all happened. The plains were calm now. The herd of buffalo grazed peacefully in the distance. A family of birds perched in the same tree that had watched the battle unfold. Life had moved on, as it always does. Ethan knelt and placed a small stone on the ground where Kovu had fallen. He whispered, "Rest well, old king." The wind swept gently through the grass, carrying his words into the horizon. He stayed there until the stars began to appear, tiny diamonds in a sky so wide it made him feel both small and infinite. Somewhere in that darkness he thought he heard a faint sound, a roar soft and distant, like an echo carried by memory rather than air. He smiled faintly. Maybe it was imagination. Or maybe the spirit of the savannah was answering back. Ethan climbed into his jeep, turned the engine on, and began to drive slowly toward the distant lights of camp. The headlights stretched long shadows across the ground. In his rearview mirror, the lone acacia tree stood like a guardian of stories untold. The night closed around him once more, peaceful and endless, and though the lion was gone, his roar would live forever, and not in sound, but in the heart of the man who had witnessed his courage. Because sometimes, in the wild, the bond between human and animal lasts longer than life itself. It becomes part of the land, part of the wind, part of the whispering that never stops when night falls over the savannah. The whisper that says, "The king is gone, but his spirit still walks,"